Good luck with it all. We'll all be watching and hoping that aid gets there pretty rapidly. Thank you very much indeed. Well, I'm joined now by Tom Mitchell, who's Head of Climate Change at the Overseas Development Institute. Mr. Mitchell, very good evening to you. Give us an idea about this storm and why something of this scale could have cropped up, and whether, has it always been historically this sort of scale of storm, or are we seeing something new here?
Okay, well, the Philippines is a country, of course, enormously exposed to typhoons. And, this is not the first time the Philippines has been impacted by a typhoon with this kind of wind strength. There are historical precedents. I think that there are a number of differences here, though. First, it's certainly late in the season. Typhoon season tends to run earlier in the year in this. And, secondly, we've seen very high wind speeds. But I think where there is, a departure is that the storm surge with this particular event is acting very much like a tsunami. And we should be treating this as much as a typhoon as we are a tsunami, and we're certainly seeing damage around that pattern. The question of whether or not this has a climate change signature, certainly too early to tell at this stage, but scientists are working hard on trying to establish that link. Certainly it bears the hallmarks of having certainly a degree of climate change signature to it, but we'll only really know that information in the coming weeks and months.
What would that type of signature be?
Okay, so certainly you've got a later than normal storm, you've had very warm seas, you've got very high wind speeds, and the science at the moment around climate change is telling us that we're expecting to see storms of higher strength, higher wind speeds, not necessarily more frequency, and it's certainly a storm like Typhoon Haiyan has all those characteristics.
I mean, I think this is, in this area, the 30th typhoon or major tropical storm. I mean, it's been a pretty busy year. Are you seeing greater frequency, or is this perhaps a freak super typhoons type of storm?
Well, so last year, just 12 months ago in the Philippines, you were reporting on the impact of Typhoon Bopha. A very strong storm that hit the southern Philippine island of Mindanao, killing about 1,200 people. So although this is of a different magnitude, there's not a huge departure from the Philippines having this kind of impact. Again, last year the Philippines recorded 20 or so tropical storms in its territories. So just the sheer numbers here are not off the scale. The wind speeds are not completely off the scale, but certainly the pattern of destruction here, acting very much like a tsunami, I think is an order of magnitude higher than we've seen in the Philippines for quite some years.
Tom Mitchell, Head of Climate Change at the Overseas Development Institute, thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.